Welcome to It's Been a Year podcast, a grief podcast about the love, loss, and the journey ahead. A year ago, I lost my husband at the age of 43. I was 41 at the time, and it's been a year, so here's my story. All right. Hi, we made it to episode 3. Feeling less emotional this time. I think I had a bit of Prosecco in the first 2 episodes, but I think I needed a bit of Dutch courage at that point just to start this off, because it's scary and nerve-wracking putting your life out there, especially when it's something so tragic, so heartbreaking, and when it comes to grief. However, I did some research, and my research said that there's a 100% chance that you're going to lose your loved one. So grief does affect us all, not just in losing your significant other, but also losing, a parent or, someone else who's very dear to you. So I think it's something we all deal with. It's something I want to talk about that people don't really talk about, I think, but is inevitable because it is going to be in our lives, and it isn't something that goes away because those people don't go away. You keep them in your heart, you carry them forward with you in your life. Grief is uncomfortable, especially if it's someone else's grief. So that's when I sort of want to go over. So I covered the day I found out that he had passed away, and then the following events of that day, and the next day. But Paul is still very much present in my life. I think about him every single day, and I look at pictures and videos and talk to my daughter about him. And when I think back over my life of the last 16, 17 years, he is, it's him and me, it's us. And so he's still very present. He's just not here. But, I miss talking to him, and I miss having fun and, with him, and planning our future with him. That's tough. That's really hard when I think that, things that we did annually or holidays that we took, there's just no more of that. And those were our favourite times, our favourite things to do. And it's like been ripped away from me, which is hard pill to swallow. I miss laughing with him, inside jokes that nobody else got. I miss his wisdom and his stories, because he was a smart cookie, and he had a lot to say, had a lot of opinions, not all I agreed with. I did like to challenge him, as you do. But I just miss the things he knew that I didn't, the things that I don't know and may never know now because he's not here to tell me or talk to me about it. But I miss seeing him with his daughter. That breaks my heart. She's doing great. She doesn't really understand, I think. She doesn't, but those family days out. I've got an Instagram as well, which I did start not long after he passed away, because I'm better at writing things down, I think. And I wanted to just talk about him and talk about how I was feeling. I wanted people to know exactly what was going on. But it was so hard to write about. I had to do it in times where I was really just feeling like I needed to get it all out down onto a page, and maybe add some pictures, maybe talk about something I was thinking about, a holiday, or a time we were together, a dinner, a birthday, or sometimes just I've been watching a movie, or listening to some music, a song would pop up. For example, there'd be times I'd just be in the kitchen and a song would come on the radio, and it's actually, I remember there was a time I was making a sandwich or something, and Pink came on, the song Who Knew, which is actually, it's one of my favourite songs. I love singing along to it. But you don't really listen to the words or, know too much about the song sometimes until you're singing them, and realised it was about someone who'd passed away who was dear to her. And God, I was just in floods of tears when that realization hit. You know, who knew that you wouldn't be here this time next year? You know, nobody knew what was wrong, what was going to happen. So, you know, it's moments like that, and they keep happening. They happen all the time. I think I mentioned, I'm not sure if I mentioned in one of the other podcasts, that a new song that had come into sort of realization is ABBA's Chiquitita, which is about grief. And, you know, the sun's going to shine again one day. You're going to feel it. It's there, I promise. And, you know, you're going to sing like you did before. And it's about a friend and grieving together. And, you know, just that things are going to get better. Maybe not easier, but better. But now, you know, I love it when his friends message me with stories and memories, you know, to make me smile. Like, a lot of people think they can't talk to me about him, that it's going to make me sad, or, you know, and it is sad. It's always going to be sad. But the way I can keep him alive, you know, in memory is talking about him, keeping him present, and just, you know, people checking in with us. But there's been some great stories that I've had sent over to me, which, you know, make me laugh. And it's nice because it means that other people are thinking about him as well. You know, it's often the silence that hurts the most in those cases. But yeah, I want people to talk to me about him, and, you know, it makes me happy, and it keeps him alive. So other things that I'm just going to address is that people have also mentioned, and apparently in grieving widows, it's a question that comes up the most. And it's a tricky question, really, but people want to know about, you know, moving on. Are you going to move on? You know, one day, you know, in a few years, you might find someone, you'll settle down again, and this, that, and the other. I don't want to hear that. You know, it's been a year still, but it breaks my heart. It's like people just want to, and I know it's sweet, but, you know, they just want to be like, I feel like if I ever got married again, they'd be like, oh, great, okay, our job is done. She's happy again. We can leave her, you know, we can leave her be now. You know, I'd never expected to be in the position that I am now, ever. I'd never thought I'd have to think about anything like that. You know, I was around 24 when we got together. So it's been, you know, I'm 42 now, so it's been a long time. You know, I don't know how to do all that stuff, and I don't want to either. You know, it's a painful journey that I'm having to push myself to even think about that kind of thing. So that tells me that I'm not ready for any of that. As it stands a year on, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in finding or starting or anything like that with a relationship with somebody new. You know, it's like, we were married 13 years. There's a lot of work, a lot of sweat and tears that went into, you know, being married that long. You know, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy and a lot of life events and things like that to have this life together, for it to become what it was and to get to where we were. It just seems a lot of hard work to have to maybe try and do that again. And it's not just that, you know, I have to ask the boss what she thinks. And, you know, we were laid down in her bed. We were doing sort of a nighttime story book. And I thought, I'm going to ask her. So I said to her, what do you think about maybe like a boy being around the house? So she thought about it, and she said, yeah, I could do with someone to play with. I was like, right, okay. I said, well, what about if there's like a boy who comes in who watches TV with mama, you know, every now and then or whatever? And she thought about it, and she said, whatever you think's best for us, mama. And then she said, do we have to call him daddy? I said, no. No. I said, you've got a dada. You've got one dada, and he'll always be your dada. There is no other dada. I said, but thank you for sharing your thoughts. And, you know, we do everything together now. She's 6, but you know, sometimes she's the only one I've got to talk to, you know, especially around the house. And I don't see the point in hiding things from her. You know, we don't need to delve into the ins and outs of what I've had to do with the stress of, like I say, all death admin and the things I've had to do to just try and keep our lives ticking over, keep our lives the same, keep our lives running, keep us happy and healthy. She doesn't need to know all that background stuff. But, you know, like I say, we look at photos of him. You know, I take her to the cemetery, we celebrate him. And I think as time goes on, she will certainly want to know more and ask about him, which is why I like to keep everything for her. So, for example, programs at the football club, any special, you know, words that have been written about him or videos that have been made. You know, I want to collect all those for the future so I can show her who her dada was, because he was amazing and he did a lot and he was a very inspiring human. And I want her to know that she can follow in those footsteps and that she's got it in her to do that. You know, until you're at the front row of a funeral for your spouse, it is hard to understand. Yeah, I don't think you can really understand until you're there. And, you know, it's sad because one day you will be there. If you've not been there already, you're gonna be there. You're gonna have to plan the funeral of your husband or wife, and you're gonna think, I'm never gonna move on. I'm not gonna move on. Or if you think, you know, one day I might die, and you know, I don't want them to move on. They've got to, you know, stay with the kids forever and just be them and the kids. And then you think, well, are they going to be happy like that? You know, are they going to be lonely? Because it is lonely. It's very lonely, and you're very, very lost after something like this happens. And I still feel lost, although I am getting there. You know, there's a lot to think about really when you're missing that one person who is just maybe your soulmate, you know, your life partner, the father or, you know, mother of your children. And it's a huge life change, a huge life shift. And I'm sure widows are very lucky if they do go on to find love again. But, you know, I can't even imagine how that happens. And yeah, I don't want it really. You know, I joke to people, this is a girl house now. We did have, obviously, you know, just over a year ago, there was myself, my husband, my daughter, and our cat, Frankie, all living in this house. Happy little family. You know, Paul passed away, my husband passed away. 2 weeks later, I took the cat to the vet and he was put down. So I lost all my boys, you know, within a couple of weeks. That was a hard month. Wow. Sometimes I do think, how have I even got through? So I lost, you know, my husband, and we lost our family pet as well at the same time. We like to think they're together somewhere. But yeah, it was really hard. But yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated question about moving on. Not something I actually want to discuss with anybody either, because I feel guilty and, you know, feel wrong. It feels wrong at this point still to even think about trying to find someone to have a relationship with. You know, that's not what I want at all. I think I'll be happy for now being on my own, and just trying to get us through the days. You know, we've got great family and friends. My social life's off the chart at the moment, with all the amazing friends I have who throw events and things like that. So, you know, it seems lonely, but I'm not lonely, in a way. But yeah, that's what people seem to want to know. Maybe they'll just want to see me have a chance at happiness again. But I feel like I'm going to make my own happy, you know, and I think that's totally doable. So I'm just happy. I'm happy knowing Charlotte's healthy, that I'm healthy, that we have a roof over our head. And that's all that matters to me. That is all that matters. And that's all I need. It's still very much a part of our house. It's still very much a part of our lives. And, you know, he always will be. But when it came time to plan his actual funeral, you know, I wanted it to be an amazing send-off for him. And, you know, my first thought was, well, I can't believe I'm even doing this. I can't believe I'm having to do this. The shock, I'm still in shock that I've actually done it. I just wanted to make it amazing for him, something to be sort of proud of, I guess. But when we got to the service, there was so many people there was so many people. He would have been in absolute shock himself at the amount of people who showed up to be there and pay their respects. You know, he passed away at the end of September on the 21st, and, you know, I had to come up with a date to actually bury him, which I just didn't want to do. I didn't want to bury him. I didn't want him to be not above ground on the planet, because that was another big realization into him not being here anymore. And so I planned it for Halloween, which one is our favorite time of year. We did a lot around Halloween, a lot of sort of scary events and fun things like that we did together. You know, any chance to go to something like that and be scared and tuck into him, and, you know, it was always our favorite time of year. We get some food and it'd just be us. But, you know, that happened to be Halloween from his date of passing was like 5 weeks, and I realized that's a long time, and his family were kind enough to let me come to the realization on my own that it was too long. It was too far away. And so when the day I realized that, it was when I'd gone into the funeral home to see him, and by then he'd had his autopsy and he'd been embalmed, and that's when he looked so different. And he felt different, and, you know, he was even colder. He was just like tough, and, you know, it was an awful day. And I just thought, he's not in there, like any soul or anything like that of him. It's just not there. I felt like it was just a body, you know. And I knew then that he had to be put in his resting place, his final resting place, so we could go and see him, so family can go and see him, and his friends can go and see him, pay respects, lay flowers, and that's where he was going to be. So we brought it forward. I think the funeral ended up being around the 18th of October. It was a Thursday. So, you know, obviously you want to do something grand for the ones you love. So options at a funeral, you've got a hearse, you know, standard hearse, or you can go extreme to like something like a horse and cart. But he would have hated that. He would have absolutely hated it. Way too over the top. But he did used to off-road with his friends years ago, and there was an option to get a Land Rover hearse. So that's what we did. It was beautiful. It looked amazing. So we chose that. Flower-wise, we had chairman, because he was chairman of the club. We had husband from me. We had daddy from Charlotte, and then son and whoever else sort of wanted to put some flowers on that. So he came over to the house in the morning. So our family gathered at our home, and it's just so anxious and awful that morning. I was feeling like it was the only time he'd been home to our home. And obviously when on that day, by the time I'd got home, even though he passed away in the house, he'd already been taken. So I hadn't had him here, you know, since he passed, and it was that was the time he was going to be here, and, you know, not be able to walk through the door, and, you know, and do all those things. So when the Land Rover turned up with him, you know, in the back, I had to take a moment in the kitchen and just breathe and try and pull myself together. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he was outside in a hearse. I mean, it's surreal. It'll never not be surreal. And then we got into our cars and we went to the football club, where fans and people like that were gathering round, because, you know, they wanted to pay their respects as well. And, you know, there were so many people there, and it was great to see so many familiar faces of people who've been in the club in the past, present, people from other clubs who we were friendly with and got to know. And, you know, the people who worked in the club who were just great people. You know, and a lot of our friends gathered there as well. So we had teas and coffees. We opened up the function room, And that whole time, I think everyone just came over and gave me a big cuddle. But what do you say? You know, those friends we'd not seen. It's like, it's awful. I mean, what do you say? Oh, well, we used to hang out all the time. Remember, we used to hang out all the time. Now he's gone. Can you believe it? You know, it's surreal. It's unreal. Yeah, it's a crazy, crazy day. But then we got back into our cars and we went over to the cemetery where the service was going to be in the chapel of rest. And again, it was filled out. We got there was people outside. I believe there was people who couldn't get in. The service lasted about an hour. 3 people fainted because it was so warm, so that was a little crazy. Charlotte was on my knee but wouldn't stop moving the whole time and was really disruptive. I remember thinking I should have maybe just given her to someone else to sort of look after, but in that moment I thought, how is she feeling? Like, does she understand? Like, her daddy is right there just in front of us in this beautiful ornate, you know, coffin that his dad had made. It was just beautiful. But he was in there, like all our friends and family were there and he was there, but he wasn't there, you know. Oh, funerals are so crazy. I'd not been to that many, honestly, in my life. And I always used to think and, you know, say to Paul, God help us, like, you know, when one of our parents go, I'm not going to be able to handle it. I'm going to literally have a mental breakdown. But at least we would have been there together to hold each other up. And I somehow did deal with this. I think you just somehow do, even though you don't think you can. And now I just think I can deal with anything. If I can get through that, I can get through literally anything. There's nothing worse. And nothing else seems important either anymore. Like, I don't feel like I'm scared of death anymore. My only concern would be to leave Charlotte, but I know she'd be in great hands if anything happened to me. Make sure you get a will sorted, guys. Which actually, just to touch on, the will, we didn't have a will. I don't have one, although I did try and do one months ago, and then got hold of the solicitors, and the girl was like, oh no, I've left. Sorry, I'm just not giving my details to anybody else to pick up, so I do need to do that. That's what I mean in this life. Things are so hard. You really try and do things and help yourself, and then everyone's just winging it, aren't they? I mean, that's terrible service, honestly. Like, I need to be having to go to 10 solicitors just to do a will, so my daughter's covered. Anyway, these are the little frustrations as well that you have with death admin and having to sort your life out and sort yourself out. I digress. What was I talking about? So the funeral. I was on such a good run. So when he passed away, you feel so lost. I didn't know what was going to happen to Charlotte and I. Our family was broken into a million pieces. So with sort of death admin to do with your home, our home was mortgaged in both of our names. So that just came over to me. I didn't have to fill any other paperwork and things out, go through probate and fill out those things for the house. And he didn't have any, assets just in his name, which if he did, that would be different. That would have gone to pay off any loans or, credit cards or anything like that he had. But because he didn't sort of have anything like that, it was quite straightforward. As his wife, everything just got passed down to me, over to me, or wiped. So I will go into more details with that if anyone's interested, maybe in a few episodes away, maybe next episode, because there's a lot to cover in that. But back to the funeral. We played a playlist of his that he'd kept for 16 years or so of the songs that we used to play at his flat when we used to have all our friends round, or when he had all our friends round. So we went together then, and we'd put music on in the, you know, and have drinks and play Guitar Hero and all that kind of stuff till, you know, the early hours of the morning, as you do when you're in your mid-20s. So we put that on. So a lot of our old friends knew the songs, and it kind of took us back to that. And it was just surreal. I remember I had a glass of Prosecco. I took it outside to just breathe and get some air. You know, but there's so many people there who want to talk, and you don't really get a moment. It's a very busy day, you know, for the immediate family. And I just still couldn't believe that I was there for that day. You know, it was like our second home at this football club at Ratcliffe FC, and we'd always been there together. We walked through those doors together. You know, I made the teas there once upon a day for the referees. I had a little pop-up shop. You know, we really all got sort of stuck in. You know, there was a lot of years there at the football club, and you really built it up. You get to know everybody like a big family, and I can't believe that we were in there for his passing, and that just we were all there and he wasn't, and we had to, you know, we left him in the cemetery. And when we actually buried him, Charlotte was very, very present. I didn't think she would be so sort of, you know, getting stuck in. She was throwing mud down, she was helping sort of dig, you know. She was really in there. You know, we wanted to step back, and she kept pulling us forwards to stand right there at the edge to watch him be lowered. I was shocked and surprised, really, that she didn't seem frightened or intimidated. She's just incredible, really. And, you know, I'm glad she was that way. I'd shown her some YouTube videos of like cartoons of, you know, what to expect at a funeral for, you know, in a way kids can understand. And I was also given some books for me on grief, some books for losing your spouse, how to sort of deal with that on the day-to-day basis. And then there was a few books for Charlotte, some cartoony books on, you know, losing a parent. You know, she's not the first one to lose a parent at a young age. You know, she's not the last. And, you know, I'm not the first widow either. However, it feels like I am, because there isn't much out there. I searched and searched for someone in my boat, my situation, who felt the same maybe at the same time. I couldn't find it, which is another reason why I'm doing this podcast. I'm hoping someone will find it, maybe someone who needs it, maybe someone has just lost their spouse and just needs to hear someone's story, and that how they're feeling is right. I mean, there's no right and wrong way, and you know, you hear about grief, and you hear, you know, there's different stages, you know, anger, sadness, heartbreak, whatever. And you know what, there are stages, definitely, and they're not in any order. They're in no order. I never really felt angry. I have felt angry at various things, but not really. It's not like it was an accident and it was taken away. In my head, I know that one of us was going to go eventually. I really didn't think it'd be this soon, you know, in the middle of our lives, which is why it's heartbreaking. But my heart breaks for Charlotte, because she just not got that time with her daddy. And that's not fair. So that makes me angry. But in my head, I can rationalise that he was poorly. We just didn't know it, you know. I think if we did know, he'd have had to have some sort of, you know, big heart surgery. So our lives would have changed anyway, I think, no matter what. But at least he would have been here and not, you know, left us alone, really. You know, I do feel like I've been left alone. And I'm just trying to get through the days, really. You know, some days I cry a lot, some days I don't. Today I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling like I can do this. I've not had to drink Prosecco. I've got a nice coffee. I feel like I can talk today. Another thing is when I'd set up the Instagram page, I could write down, I could, add photos and write stories when I felt like it needed to spill out of me. But the podcast is something I'm going to try and do going forwards. And so it's going to be definitely a weekly thing, maybe, once a week to start off with, maybe twice a week. I want to get some guests in. I want to get family and friends in to talk to them about that day, how it affected them, and just their, turn of events, what happened in their day when they'd found out. And then I want to get some friends in as well who have lost a parent or lost a friend or someone dear, and just talk about grief, and talk about how they get through every day, how they're moving forward, what helps, what doesn't, how they feel, because it doesn't go away and it hits you sometimes when you least expect it. A song, or a movie that comes on, or a smell, or a place. All these things bring back memories, really, but as long as you're thinking of them, are they always alive? Are they always there? They never go away then. People who were so significant in your life and who you loved so much. Yeah. So, hopefully I went over the funeral details well enough. There was a lot of people there. We obviously got some food in. The funeral itself as well, we had some gospel singers and we set off some doves. And when the doves set off, the gospel singers sing this song of Fly Away Home, which is just beautiful. And I'd been on, even though I did the headstones, I helped sort of create the headstones in that department for the funeral home when I worked there. I had to leave eventually. It's just so painful. I couldn't get away from grief. And now I talk about grief. So I don't know, catch 22. But other people's grief on top of mine was a lot, and I just couldn't do it. I needed a break. So I don't do it anymore, but I did last about another 10 months. I never really stopped working because I didn't want to let anyone down, because they were dealing with their own grief as well. But I needed time to stop, get off that roundabout and deal with my own. So this is why I've made the podcast as well. I've got some time to do it. But yeah, I'd been on the job in the August on a funeral, and it was a Caribbean funeral. So, they turn up in the cemetery with a van. They open the doors. There's 2 speakers there with music. They're drinking rum. They're singing. There's the doves are released, and it really is a celebration of someone's life, and that's just how they know how to do it, and it's absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen or been to anything like that before, and so I wanted to incorporate that sort of joy and celebration into the funeral of my husband. So I think it was a really beautiful service. We chose some songs, which was awful. I love music. Music is a huge thing in my life. And actually has got me through these days a lot. Often I'll just put music on in the house and dance around and sing to it. Or as of late, just sit in my back conservatory with music on with some Prosecco. Maybe some friends, sometimes maybe not. But I'll have a good sing. I'll get it all out. And yeah, it's really, really helped, to be honest. And, we'd sit in the back, like say with some Prosecco or whatever, and we were thinking, what songs can we have? So the first song he came into was a song by Queen, Only the Good Die Young, and it was written just after Freddie Mercury had passed, by the rest of the band. And it's a beautiful song, and a song that I'd not heard often. I'm a huge Queen fan, and it just popped in my head one day, so I asked Alexa to put it on, and we all just agreed it was beautiful. After the first few lines, we were in tears. So that was the first song. The second song was an Elton John song, Rocket Man. I once asked him what his favourite Elton song was, and he said Rocket Man, but Elton John is huge in his family. His dad loves Elton. I think he spoke to him or met him back in the day, and his dad's huge into music as well, and Elton is just number one. Paul used to joke that he can tell any Elton John song in the first 2 beats, and he could as well. He could definitely do that. So we had to incorporate that. And then the last song, another sort of family song, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. You know, I truly believe he was born to run. He went full throttle at 100% all the time, and more sometimes. So those were the three songs I can't listen to anymore. But there was a poem that I wanted to read and I incorporated into the funeral as the last poem of the service. At the time, I just didn't have the strength to read it. I couldn't read it. You know, Charlotte was crawling all over me. I couldn't concentrate. I was just so devastated and upset. So his brother read it. And it's how I felt and it's how I feel. And I'd like to read it now. So it's called Stop All the Clocks by W.H. Auden. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the pianos with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put crepe bows around the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Sunday rest. My noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out everyone. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any good. And that's the first time I've read that without crying. But thank you for letting me read that. I got there eventually, but it's how I felt. I felt like there's no point in anything anymore. Like, you know, he's gone. I still feel like that. It's a strange feeling. I mean, I know there is a point to things, but it's like, why did it happen? You know, why did it happen to us? It's just something that happened to us. Sometimes things happen to you and you just have to deal with it. And there's no harder life challenge, honestly, than having to deal with something like this when it's just your whole life. You know, it's not like losing a job and getting a job. You've lost half your life, you know, and half of your future as well. So now it has to be rewritten. But I just want us to be healthy and happy. We have our roof over our head, which is important, and we have great family and friends. So yeah, I think the funeral was lovely. It was a lovely day. I think he'd have been happy with it. And I just wish I could have got around to speak to more people, but I know how people can be maybe afraid of talking to me and don't know what to say, basically. But anyway, I will leave episode 3 here. So what I want to say is thank you for watching or listening. Go and find your loved ones, gather them all up, give them a big kiss and a cuddle, tell them you love them, hold them so tight. Take videos so you can, you know, just watch them back, watch them together, make those memories and keep those memories, because it's all you've got at the end of the day. And I know people say that, now I live it, and I believe it. So thanks for listening to It's Been a Year podcast, and I'll catch you on episode 4, which potentially may cover some of the admin that I've had to do this last year. So that's going to be a fun one.
Hi, my name is Charlotte and thank you for watching my mummy's video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.